Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Facebook Live broadcast with MedStar Health. My name is Sarah Ridenauer, and I'm joined today by three community health registered dietitians from our Food RX programs. We're joined today by Angela Robertson at MedStar Good Samaritan Hospital, Nancy Rosgoni at MedStar Harbor Hospital, and Tornia Anderson Morgan at MedStar Franklin Square Medical Center. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about healthy holiday eating and learning more about the Food RX program that has expanded into 3 MedStar Health hospitals in the Baltimore region. So if you or someone you love may benefit from hearing timely, relevant tips and advice on getting through the holidays without the negative health effects that may be associated with holiday eating, then stick around, share this broadcast with your friends, and if you have any questions for our experts, please ask those in the comments below. Thank you all once again for joining us today and taking time out of your day to answer our questions. Before we get into those questions, I'd like to ask each of you to share your background and the work you do here at MedStar Health. Angela, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Sarah, and hello and welcome to all of our Facebook participants. My name is Angela Roberson. I am the lead dietitian for the Food RX program here at Good Samaritan Hospital. We launched Food RX about 2.5 years ago. It's a really innovative program designed to address chronic disease, things like diabetes, heart disease, some asthma and lung problems, heart disease, cardio, and it's been really successful. We help patients not just with their medical disease, but we also help them with their food insecurity. So we help patients learn how to manage their disease using food primarily as the primary driver of management, right? Of self-management and learning how to control with food. Good Samaritan is a flagship program, and it's been really exciting to start it, and we're so happy to see it growing across MedStar.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Nancy?
Hi, I'm Nancy Rosgoni. I'm the dietitian here at MedStar Harbor Hospital Food RX program. I'm a registered dietitian, certified diabetes care and education specialist. And I've been here, I started up the program here at Harbor Hospital about 1 year and 2 months ago. It's been going great. We're really starting to ramp up enrollment. It's been really well received and we're seeing great outcomes. I work very closely with endocrinology, primary care, and cardiology here at Harbor Hospital to get the patients who are most in need of assistance directed here to the program.
Great, thank you. And Tornia?
Thank you, Sarah. I am a dietitian like the other ladies. My background is in weight management and general dietetics, just helping people become healthier. I'm the newest addition to the MedStar Food RX family, so I haven't made 1 year yet. I think I'm knocking on 6 months. But I'm super excited, and yeah, let's go.
Thank you. Yeah, we're all very excited. And thanks again, like I said, for joining us. Let's get into the questions. So, Angela, what are the most common concerns that patients have when it comes to eating over the holidays?
Yeah, that's a good question. The holidays are a special time and everybody wants to enjoy them. We're with family and close friends, and it's really, it's a time that everybody looks forward to. So, I don't want to be a buzzkill on those good times. And so the concern is that we work so hard to get them well managed. If our patient is living with diabetes or living with hypertension, we've worked over the course of 3 to 6 months to get them really well managed, and their numbers are now looking really good. And they don't want to ruin those numbers over the holidays. So we talk about how to manage this, month and a half that we have between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And we talk about sticking to the plan. We always recommend that patients follow an 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, we're doing what we should. 20% of the time, we have a little bit more flexibility. The most important thing is to just not completely go off of the diet that they've been following. So to put a little bit more flexibility in, but also to sort of maintain that frame of reference when it comes to the diabetic plate or my plate through the USDA. And that is mostly fruits and vegetables, eating whole foods, right? That's really the goal day in and day out. So sometimes we have more carb-heavy foods over the holidays, and we talk about how to just manage that. And most patients do really well with following the diabetic plate.
Great, thank you. And so why is overeating a concern, especially for patients with diabetes, high blood pressure, and other chronic health conditions?
Yeah, I mean, we know that diabetes is tied directly, your glycemic control or your blood sugar is directly tied to the food you eat. The more carbohydrates you eat, the higher your blood sugars go. So we know that's what we're trying to manage. And so it's really important that we stay within those parameters. And at the holidays, all of your favorite foods are on the table. All the things that have great memories, all the things that are tied to the good times from childhood to adulthood. And so I try to get my patients to sort of recognize that the food isn't going anywhere, right? So it's okay to sample, maybe try a little bit of something and a little bit of something else. And that if you are able to, and you're not able to sample everything that day, make yourself a to-go plate. The to-go plate goes home, it goes in the fridge, and then tomorrow, when you can start over with a whole new, meal where you are starting from scratch and starting from zero, then you can add in those foods that you didn't have a chance to try the other day, right? But basically, the food's not going anywhere. It's really the fellowship, hanging out with friends and family, and just trying to enjoy the company. And the food will be around tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, and so I think that pretty much answered my next question for you, which is what general advice do you give them, like mindset wise? Did you have anything else that you wanted to add for that, or did you cover it already before I got the
Yeah.
chance to ask it?
Yeah, really, to just not have the main focus be on the food, right?
Yeah.
Because the holidays is about a lot of things, and food is just one part of it. And I think if we've done our job well as dietitians, we've really reinforced the fact that managing whatever your chronic condition long term is the most important thing. Thanksgiving and Christmas will come and go, but your health, the health of your organs, and just your overall health are very dependent most times on your diet, on the nutrition that you're taking in. And so that's the most important thing. So we don't want to derail that. And there's no reason to. You can still enjoy the food you like. I always tell my patients, there's no food I'm going to tell you not to eat. You can still eat all those things. It's just a matter of knowing how to sort of arrange them on your plate and making sure that we don't overindulge. So just keeping that in mind.
Right. Yeah, I think that's great advice. Thank you for that. Nancy, what are some ways to make popular holiday side dishes healthier?
So if you've been working with us in the Food RX program or in any other capacity, hopefully over time, your taste buds do change. And so you've already been working towards getting used to eating foods that are higher in fiber, lower in sodium, lower in saturated fat. So one of the things that I always ask patients to do is find a way to add an extra vegetable to whatever you're eating. I don't care if it's just putting lettuce and tomato in a sandwich. So for example, very popular side dish at Thanksgiving and holiday and Christmas is going to be stuffing. Put some extra vegetables in it. It may not be what you're used to. It may be different and it may not taste exactly the same, but does that mean it's bad? No, it doesn't. So add some fiber, use whole grains versus simple carbohydrates. Find a way to add legumes and beans. Fiber is one of the biggest things that I preach about here. And the sources for those are vegetables, fruits, and whole grains.
Great, thank you. And then another big topic is, how do alcoholic beverages fit into healthy holiday eating?
I mean, that's a loaded question because it's so multifaceted. But the answer is that, of course, in moderation, they can fit in. The reason I say it's a loaded question is because it depends on what you're drinking. It depends on how you're drinking, when you're drinking, and why you're drinking. If you are drinking to ease the stress of being around, being in an uncomfortable situation, Again, if you've been working with me for a while, I've been encouraging you from day one to see a behavioral therapist and to work on your anxieties around food and around your life situation. But if you are going to drink alcohol, I recommend sticking to, a lighter beverage. So just wine, or if you're having a mixed drink mixed with something that is low in calories, you should always make sure that you are drinking, that you're eating while you're drinking. Because the thing that a lot of people don't understand is your liver is not a multitasker. Your liver can either, especially if you are taking insulin, this is very important, but your liver can either detoxify alcohol, so degrade the alcohol that you're taking in, or it can help to bring your blood sugar back up if it starts to drop. So a common scenario might be, you sit down after dinner and you kill a couple of bottles of wine with family and you're not eating. And especially if you've taken insulin with your previous meal, you're not eating, your blood sugar starts to drop, and your liver, which stores glucose for that very scenario so that it can release if your sugar starts to drop, that doesn't happen. So you have hypoglycemia or low blood sugar that can occur even up to about 12 hours later. So it's very important that people with diabetes, particularly those that take insulin or medications that can drop your blood sugar, check before, during, and every couple hours after having drinks. And in general, the guidance for women is 1 drink per day, which is a glass of wine, a beer, or 1.5 ounces of liquor, or for men, 2 drinks per day, and to try to keep it at that. But if you do overindulge, to be careful.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for explaining all
And
that.
Sarah, I would also just add, Nancy mentioned 1.5 ounces if it's a spirit, like about 80 proof. And if you're drinking wine, it's about 4 or 5 ounces. It's about 2/3 of a glass. And if it's beer, it's about a 12 ounce. So that's 1 drink. So as Nancy said, 1 for women, 2 per day for men.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Tornia, what are some ideas for things you can do before a meal to prevent overeating and having that uncomfortable stuffed feeling that everybody hates after they've ate?
Well, some people may not hate it, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'm gonna try to make this simple, clean cut so you can kind of itemize it. So one thing is try not to leave your house hungry. So if you're going to someone else's house, like I prefer to do, do not save your entire appetite for the nice myriad of colors and delicious dishes that are just going to tempt you and you just want to enjoy everything. So try to have something light even. It could be like a light salad or light soup, but have some kind of breakfast if you're going to leave your house for the day. If you yourself are doing that main cooking, everyone is coming to your house, the same thing applies. Try not to get up and get straight into the rut of the cooking and the preparation, and then you're exhausted and famished and just starving by the time the food is ready, and now you might just overeat. Trying to stay hydrated. So some people might have heard sometimes when you feel thirsty, you might be already dehydrated because we're not as sensitive to thirst as we are to hunger sometimes. So drink your water from in the morning, have your tea, have your soup, or however you get your fluids in for the day. And preferably a lower calorie beverage. So whether it's a diet iced tea or some hot tea with just a little to no added sugar, that can help. So staying hydrated, making sure to have breakfast. Yeah, those are the 2 major things, and not trying to reserve your entire appetite for the biggest part of the day.
Yeah, I know I've definitely done that before and regretted it after. So thank you for those tips. And then how would you advise patients about food choice and portion control?
So when you're building your plate, most people, depending on the spread, your nice Thanksgiving, Christmas, or whatever holiday spread that you have, you start off, we all have a routine. We start off with the utensils, we grab the plate, and then we maybe go around the table or down the line and we start adding things. Try to put as much as you think is reasonable on that one plate. And on your first plate, because some of us know about seconds and thirds, on that first plate, try to make it a balanced meal. So whether you've worked with us or not, A balanced meal would include some type of veggie on there or some type of green, switch around the colors, some type of protein, some type of lean protein. So lean meat, fish, the turkey, the ham, the duck, the beef, the roast, whatever that lean centerpiece is. So including those two things would help you be more satisfied and make that plate a lot more balanced. So if you do feel like, you know what, you really enjoyed that mac and cheese and you want to go back for a little more because that's the first thing you took off your plate, pause and try to finish that first meal first. That way you still get in that protein and those vegetables in one sitting, and more than likely you'll be so satisfied you may not want a second and third plate. So most times people tend to want that second and third serving. It's because most of their plate is filled with simple, easily digestible, higher carb foods like the mac and cheese and the pies, and the things that are made with dough and the sweets and all the desserts. And we just love them and we want to get as much as possible. But if somewhere earlier on we included some lean meats and we included some whole vegetables, or whether it's a callaloo or a greens or anything like that, more than likely we'll be more satisfied and we're going to reduce the risk of overeating.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And one other thing that we sometimes do, we get so excited when the meal is ready and we sit down that we inhale the food, right? We don't really take the time to enjoy it. We're not fully chewing, we're not swallowing, we're not putting the fork down, right? So the fork should hit the plate a few times between the beginning and the end. So sometimes what happens is we eat so fast that we don't give our brain time to catch up with our stomach. So as our stomach starts to expand, we've gotten that food in, but that signal really hasn't been relayed to the brain. So what happens is you overeat, and by the time the brain is caught up, now we're overly full. Now we've got that stuffed feeling because we didn't take a pause. So like Tonya said, fix your normal plate, take the time to enjoy it, and take a pause. Give yourself, maybe 10 or 15 minutes of conversation before you get up and go back for seconds to see, am I really still hungry?
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that as well. Just eating everything as soon as I sit down, which is, like you said, I'll sometimes try to talk as much as I can as I'm eating to slow myself down a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely
Talk
guilty
about how good it was. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I kind of want to tag team onto that just real quick by saying, one of the things that I often work with clients on, if they struggle with it, because a lot of the times when you overeat, especially at the holidays, it's a comfort thing. It's like, this is so good. I never get this. I love this. It makes me feel so happy to have this food, but you're not really hungry. So one of the exercises I have clients do sometimes when they struggle with emotional eating is to, before they grab seconds, you set a timer for 5 minutes. You sit there and kind of, relax, think over why, what emotion in my body is driving me to go for those seconds. And this is something that you don't start the day of Thanksgiving. This is something you practice over time, but examine what emotions you're feeling as you're thinking about getting that food. And if after the 5-minute timer goes off, you're still like, yeah, I want it, then go ahead and have it and let it go. Be done with it.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good idea, because sometimes you just need to sit with it for a second and process that, oh, I am full. And like you said, think about your emotions and everything.
Yeah.
My next question. Oh, did you have something else you wanted to add?
No.
Sorry. Okay. I didn't want to cut you off.
Nope.
My next question for all of you is, what are some ways to lower the sodium, fat, carbs, contents like those of popular holiday side dishes?
Well, this is what I do. I'll tell you what I do. I'm not heavy into dairy. I don't eat a lot of meat, but what I do is when I grocery shop, I do look for items that are already marked as low sodium. So let's say tomatoes, for example. Tomatoes have natural sodium. So you can't avoid it, but you can look for no salt added or low sodium tomato products, canned tomatoes, diced tomatoes, sauces. The same when it goes to fat products. So sour cream or cottage cheese. Again, I'm not a huge user of those things, but let's say you're making a lasagna, you can use the skim ricotta or part skim. You can get part skim mozzarella. You can, in little ways, you can sort of just start peeling away at the fat content and the calorie content. And my experience has been is I can't really tell the difference between full fat and reduced fat. To me, now no fat might be a difference, right? Having something that is zero fat, and what we do know is that the body does need some fat to absorb certain nutrients. And so fat should not be removed completely from your diet, but you can certainly do low fat. You can certainly do low sodium and, overall portion sizes, right? The less you eat, the less salt you're going to take in. So let's watch our portion sizes, particularly for our patients who are living with diabetes. We know that those food items, like Nancy mentioned, the dressing or the stuffing, however you prepare it, that is nothing but bread. So maybe add some sausage to remove some of the space for the carbohydrates, as Nancy said. Maybe add more vegetables. Maybe this time you focus on more vegetables. So if there's greens and green beans and collards, and maybe you focus less on the pastas and the macaronis and you focus more on the vegetables. So I always say, be willing to try a new thing, be willing to switch it up, right? It's all about maintaining your health. Your health is the most important thing. Holidays will come and go, but your blood sugar is forever.
Yes.
So let's remember that is the most important thing.
I just have an ad there. I have an ad there. So the person who is cooking, one way to reduce your added salt is to try not to add just salt. So there's so much seasonings out these days. There's aisles and aisles of seasonings. There's so much options that are sodium free, right? So we can switch to some of these sodium free options and then not have added salt at the table. So for me, having salt and pepper at a dinner table is not something I grew up with. To me, that's an American thing. But if you do still do that at home, and especially if you have hypertension, which is high blood pressure, maybe remove the added salt, because more than likely there's enough sodium in a little bit of everything that you're going to have for the day. So that's for salt. For the person who is going to someone else's house, they don't know what sodium is in anything. They have no idea. But more than likely, anything that's cooked and juicy is going to have some added sodium in there. So if you do need to watch your sodium intake, maybe limit those foods and focus more on the whole foods. A tip for the added fats: if you didn't cook and you can see a label, you may not be sure what fats might be in there. One way to tell is the visible fat that you can see, and particularly in meats, whether it's processed meats or something like if you're going to have a ham or a turkey or a chicken or a roast as your centerpiece or something like that. Most of the times you can see the little jiggle of fat somewhere hiding around the meat or the ham or something. So if you can see it and you can remove it, that would be good. So it's already cooked. This is after the fact. So just take your knife and fork and remove whatever visible fat that you can see, which is something anybody can just kind of easily do. For added sugars, well, we kind of know the things that taste sweet. So a little less. We can still have them, and you're not going to alter the pie that's already made, but maybe don't have second and thirds of pie and save some of that appetite for the whole dishes. That's going to keep you more satisfied.
Yeah.
And I would agree. And I would say I would add, watch your sugar beverages. We talked about alcohol, but we didn't talk about sweet tea, the half and halves, the eggnog. Oh my goodness, the eggnog. So sugar is in everything, but it's especially in the beverages. So if you can get maybe a flavored water or a sparkling soda, sugar-free diet, something like that, that tremendously cuts the amount of sugar that you're going to take. Most of the calories, for people who consume most of their calories, they're consumed in your drinks. So I don't want to call out any retailer, but the mocha chocolate lattes with the caramel sauce and whipped cream, you know who you are. You want to do the best you can to, limit those, maybe get a small, and Torian's absolutely right. Spices and seasoning go a long way in place of sodium. And I will use one last trick or tip for me. If you're having any kind of fish, Lime juice and lemon juice is a good substitute for sodium. If you've prepared fish and you want to squeeze a little citrus juice over top, it really does mimic the flavor of salt. And so lemon juice will go a long way in making you feel like you've added salt.
That's a good tip.
I did want to add just one of the other things that I tend to talk to people a lot about is making your plate plant focused, not necessarily vegetarian, but if the main portions of your plate are from plant-based whole foods, it's naturally going to be low in sodium, lower in added sugars, lower in fat. We're working in baby steps with many clients. So I do like to provide them actual recipes that they can follow that are similar to foods that they love. One of the sites that I like to go to is diabetesfoodhub.org. It's the American Diabetes Association's website, where if it's a wide array of different foods, different cultural and ethnic foods as well. So if my patient tells me I really love beef stew, I want to give me a recipe, you can be assured that the recipes on there are going to be appropriate for people with diabetes and also for people with heart disease, because diabetes is a heart disease. They'll be lower in fat, lower in saturated fat, lower in sodium, lower in refined carbs, and higher in fiber. So that's a great source that I often print out recipes from.
Yeah, that's great tips. Thank you so much. We do have a question from one of our viewers, which I think is kind of tied into what we just discussed. This is from Eric. Thank you, Eric, for your question. He asked, I suffer from heartburn. Are there some foods that I should avoid or some foods that will help reduce the heartburn? So maybe also some tips for, like you were just talking about, with substituting this for that when it comes to heartburn.
This is actually something I'm intimately familiar with.
Yeah,
so if you don't mind, I can share some things that have worked for me and that I've also advised patients and has worked for them. One of the main things that most people don't even think of has nothing to do with what you eat, but it's about not overeating and not overfilling your stomach, because that puts pressure on the lower esophageal sphincter, forcing acid back up into your esophagus, which is what heartburn really is. So usually I will advise people to stop drinking fluids 30 minutes before you eat. Don't drink fluids with meals. Wait 30 minutes after. That's even water, especially ice water. Drink more room temperature fluids. And then, of course, being very careful to eat slowly so you don't become overfull. I find most people that have reflux, it's because they eat until they're overfull and it pushes on the stomach.
Right. Yeah.
I can chime in. Those are great tips as far as behavior and habits. When it comes to the specific foods, I would say try to avoid very fatty or fried foods, right? These foods take longer to digest. It takes longer for the stomach to break it down. So that food just hangs around in your belly a little bit longer. Also, caffeine, chocolate, alcohol can sometimes lead to reflux, and also some spices. So I think typically, and Nancy, correct me if this doesn't sound right to you, the spicy spices, the hot, like the capsaicins, the red pepper, chili flakes, the spicier a food is, the more probable that it can cause a bit of reflux or stomach upset, which can then really lead to reflux. So yeah, fatty foods, very spicy foods, caffeine, chocolate, those kinds of things, alcohol can tend to cause some GERD symptoms.
And somewhat ironically, because many people think that this is calming, but peppermint can actually relax the lower esophageal sphincter. A lot of people drink peppermint tea to try to calm it down, but it can actually worsen it.
Interesting.
And also tomatoes and citrus.
Yeah,
Some people can be affected by tomatoes and citrus. So even something as harmless as lasagna, pizza, or dishes that have a lot of tomato sauce in there can easily upset someone who struggles with GERD and acid reflux.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, I've definitely heard with like spicy foods and that sort of thing, but I didn't know about citruses and even drinking before meals and close after meals. That's interesting. That's good to know.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? If you fill your stomach up with liquids, your stomach can only hold so much before the stretch receptors sort of signal that it's full. So if you've filled half of it with fluids and then you're still trying to get more of that food in there, it can, like Nancy said, it can cause the food to want to go back up.
Mhm. Yeah, that's good to know. Thank you all. We have
Yeah.
another question from another viewer. This is from Bobby. He says he suffers from IBS and because of that tends to only eat one meal a day. If I'm getting all the calories I need and hitting my macros, is there a concern that it happens through one meal versus 3 meals a day? So would that make a difference having just the one that, covers everything, or is it better to spread that out between 3 meals?
We will need more information.
Okay.
Right? So a lot of questions that the general public have for dietitians, sometimes they expect us to have this one readily available, quick response that should work. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that's true for the general population, but something like IBS is a very finicky condition. Sometimes something works today and it doesn't work tomorrow. Sometimes this product is this meal plan or this diet is really good for a couple of weeks, and it changes its mind, or this one food was tolerable and then all of a sudden it's not. The combination, all sorts of things. You might have heard your gut is like the second brain. So stress can affect IBS and digestion. So we would have to know more about this person, what they're currently doing, how they're possibly meeting all of their needs in one meal. Most people can't really do that, but if this person's possibly doing that, and then see what their labs are looking like, what other clinical challenges they may or may not have before we can give a reasonable response. So if you're going to ask a dietitian, we're going to ask you 10 plus more questions to really try to give you a more educated response.
Yeah, I would say, if possible, try to meet with a dietitian, even if it's only one time. That's the best approach. I agree. It might be really difficult in one meal to get all of the nutritional requirements in anywhere from 18 to 100 to 2,000 calories. So consult with a dietitian would be helpful.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Thank you both to our viewers for their questions. At this time, I'm going to pause for a second and welcome our viewers again to today's Facebook Live about healthy holiday eating. I'm joined by 3 community health registered dietitians from our Food RX programs, Angela Roberson, Nancy Rosgoni, and Tornia Anderson Morgan. If you have any questions about how to eat healthy during the holiday season, please ask those in the comments below. We're going to get back into our questions. And we're going to take some time to talk about the Food RX programs that we manage at MedStar Health. We'll make sure to include in the comments how to refer patients to the program, links for them to check it out. First, for Angela, so what is Food RX to start off?
Yep, Food RX is a program. It's a program that was modeled after a program that was started in rural Pennsylvania called the Food Pharmacy. Primarily, that program only consulted and counseled with people living with diabetes. Our program has a bit of a broader reach, but the majority of our patients are living with diabetes. However, they're also living with the situation where they may have social needs, social barriers, things that prevent them from really achieving optimal health. So we find that some of our patients are frequent emergency room, utilizers. They may come to the ER once a month, once every 2 or 3 months, but it's always for the same reason. And that tells us that we're not addressing something, right? We're missing something. We don't just want to patch you up and send you back into your life. We want to try to understand what's going on in your life that is preventing you from really taking control over your health and being able to manage it. And what I'm finding with my patients is that it's education. It's the very thing that we're doing here today, is trying to help people understand that there's no one approach. We don't fix things in 1 or 2 visits. We like to spend time over the course of the program, 6 months, meeting with patients, going over their medications, make sure that they are medication compliant, meaning picking up your refills, making sure you don't run out, and when you have them, making sure you take them. In this program, we also provide nutritional support. So if we're going to talk the talk, we've got to be able to walk that walk. And so if I say that, I'd like you to be eating whole foods, lean proteins, high fiber, low sodium and fat, then I want to also be able to provide those things for a period of time so that you sort of get into the habit of knowing what good nutrition for you looks like. So we do provide nutrition support while they're enrolled in the program, as well as clinical support to make sure that you meet with our providers, our endocrinologists, our cardiac specialists, our pulmonary specialists, to make sure that we are addressing all of the needs while we have you as a patient in this short window. Because we don't want you to be back in the emergency room. We want you to be able to go to work and not miss time and spend time with your family. So this program, a very unique program. It's really one of a kind, particularly in this part of the country. And so, yeah, that's FoodRx. We're really proud of this program.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear. And Nancy, why is it so important to help patients with chronic illnesses understand how what they eat affects their health?
Because most people, specifically people with diabetes, have never had any education about what's going on in their body and how the things that they eat actually affect their blood sugars. Whenever I sit down and talk with people, over time, they will have this aha moment where they realize, I never knew that eating that thing that I eat all the time is what's responsible for these blood sugar readings in the 300s. So it's and plus everybody has to eat. You can't just stop eating. So we need to be able to, number one, teach people the things they can. I like to focus on what you can add to your current diet. I start every visit by asking, do you remember what you had to eat yesterday? Let's talk it through. And then if I see that there's no vegetables in there, I'm like, well, what do you think about, adding this, that, or the other to your plate? So helping them understand that when you add vegetables, when you add fiber, when you decrease the simple carbs in your diet, over time, they start to see directly the impact that those things have. One of the exercises that I always have people do, if they're ready for it, is complete what's called an alt-day pair checking food and blood sugar log, where on different days of the week, they write down what they ate, they check their blood sugar before and 2 hours after, and then they come in, we review it, we do carb counts, and we look at it, and they can directly see in front of them, wow, when I ate that cheeseburger from Burger King and onion rings, even 2 hours later, my blood sugar was still 100 points higher than it was before I ate, even though I took my insulin. That really hits home with people, and that is the moment when they usually start going, maybe I won't get the onion rings next time. And then we talk about, over time they get to the point where maybe they decide to make a turkey burger at home instead of going out.
Yeah.
We work a lot on, like Angela said, food insecurity is a key component. So we work to get people into the habit of cooking at home more than going out. A, it's healthier, B, it costs less. So it's helping people. A lot of healthcare professionals are very quick to tell people, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. Give people information, but we help them understand how to do it.
Yeah. And so then I think that even kind of goes into my next question of how do you help patients manage their food choices and portions, which, like you were talking about, kind of laying it all out and seeing what they're eating and how it affects it. I'm sure that goes into this.
So the simplest method for portion control, specifically with diabetes, is to use the diabetes my plate method, with half of your plate with the non-starchy vegetables, a quarter with a whole grain carbohydrate, and a quarter with a lean protein. And then over time, we can get to the point where we start narrowing down using the paired blood sugar checking model or using continuous glucose monitoring, start narrowing down how much carbohydrate that person's body can metabolize. By showing how much their sugar increases after they eat. When we start out, whenever I'm asking people for a recall, I have measuring cups that I pull out and I'm like, show me how much cereal did you have? Show me how much potatoes did you have? And from there, we can start saying, well, if you see the food label, although this bag of maseca, you're making four tortillas from this bag of maseca, but it's really 32 servings. So each tortilla you're making is actually equivalent to 8. So then it really hits home and helps them understand, oh, that's why my sugar's high, because my portion sizes are not what's intended and they're very much too big.
Yeah. And then can you tell us, oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to add, Sarah, that this is why what Nancy just described is kind of what we do. Taking that time, what she just explained takes more than one visit. Being able to have a patient get a CGM, so a continuous glucose monitor. Nancy says that she is able to have the food log available and then have the blood sugar numbers available and be able to sit with the patient and show them, when you ate this, this is what your body did. And 2 hours later, this is what was still going on. These things take time. And oftentimes in clinical practice, physicians don't have an hour to spend with the patient every 2 weeks to go over in this much detail. But this is what we do. And this is why the program has been so successful, is because the educational piece has kind of been missing from this patient's life. They've kind of been winging it, just freestyling how they manage their blood sugar, not really understanding the science behind hyperglycemia and hypoglycemia. So I just can't say enough that what Nancy just described is something that takes time. And this is why she's been so successful with our patients.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for explaining that. And then Nancy, could you tell us a little bit more about the Food RX program at MedStar Harbor Hospital?
So the program at MedStar Harbor Hospital is set up a little differently from the other two. We're all a little different, but yet the same. At Harbor Hospital, my office is actually on the first floor of the outpatient center, right across from the pharmacy. It's a very visible location. There are multiple, there's endocrinology, cardiology, primary care in this building, plus just foot traffic. So my program, we take referrals for patients who have a hemoglobin A1C of greater than 7. That's a marker of diabetes control. Greater than 7, and then our providers have cue cards that help them screen for food insecurity. So patients get referred to us, and we have a separate office. You can see behind me, I've got my food pantry in here and my office. And I also have a community health advocate that works here in my office. So our program really is a comprehensive way. We're all in one building. We can communicate well amongst all the different providers in the same way that they can at Good Sam and the Collaborative Care Clinic, in the same way that Tonya can at Franklin Square in Family Health and I forget, internal medicine. Is that right? I'm sorry if I'm wrong. But so our program is really designed to be community-based. We provide a lot of referrals right here in the Cherry Hill, Brooklyn, Curtis Bay area. And it's really designed to help people live their current life in a more healthy way using the resources that are available for them.
That's great. That's awesome to hear. Thank you. Tonya, so why is it important to be sensitive to patients with different food cultures? I know you're from Trinidad, so I'm sure you're the best person to ask this question, and you have some firsthand experience with this.
Yes, Trinidad and Tobago, I'm a very, very proud product of the Twin Island Republic. Culture is a large part of who people are, especially in a country like America, where it's such a melting pot, and you're going to meet people from all walks of life, all corners of the globe, all just from all over the world. And we as dietitians, regardless of what our culture is, how we were raised, whether we were locally made, born and raised in the US, or from outside, we need to be able to know how to relate to someone else's culture. Now, we are trained to be able to do that without having any knowledge of where you're from or your country or what you typically eat. Why? Because we ask questions, right? We are really good PIs. We are detectives. And this is why you're always going to get a really long, drawn out response from a passionate dietitian like ourselves. It's never just a quick yes, no response, right? So with culture, and like with my culture, for example, and most people, around the holiday times, you're going to see specific foods that align with that person's culture. So here in the US, more than likely, you're guaranteed to see a turkey somewhere on that table. You might see pot roast, you might see some other things. You're guaranteed to see some pumpkin, some kind of pie, right? Or even a sweet potato pie, something pumpkin flavored, spicy, something like that. You're going to see maybe some soda, some iced tea. You're definitely going to see mac and cheese. You might see some type of greens, particularly colored greens, and those who are from the southern region or just African-American households. But for Latino households, it might be a little different. For Asian households, it might be a little bit different. For European households, it might be a little bit different. So we're going to ask questions about things that you like to eat, what you typically eat, and then give you feedback there. When you talk about cultural foods, more than likely, even you, if you were to think about right now, something that you really love, just a dish, a meal that you love to see around the holiday time, more than likely it's going to elicit a visceral response. You're going to feel some type of way. It's going to take you back, right? Nostalgia. So for you to take that away, now imagine someone telling you, you can't have that anymore. They just took it away. You might be trying to pick a fight with some people, right? So you're not going to take away my ham around Christmas time, the way how we might make it. I'm expecting to see, even with my Trini households here in the US, in Maryland, I'm expecting to see some kind of ham, some black cake. I mean, I hope I'm not making it, but I'm hoping someone else would make it. I'm expecting to see sorrel, maybe some wabi. So these are some drinks. Eggnog is, we do drink eggnog, but punch a creme is something that's a little more popular. So the drinks and the dishes and the desserts and the sides, I'm looking forward to these things. So you can't just completely rip it apart, but making small alterations can help make them a little bit healthier. But it's really important to recognize someone's culture.
Yeah, that's awesome. I understand there are a number of community partners for FoodRx. Could you talk a little bit about those partners?
Yeah, so we have 9 partners, and each of them, we have a different relationship. Some are more active than others, but we value all of them. So similarly to the clinical side, we don't just work by ourselves. We recognize that we work with other members of the patient's healthcare team so that the patient can be most successful. We have these partnering organizations that make some sort of contribution so that the patient is most successful. So that can be, we have the Maryland Food Bank, where is our primary source of food that we do give to our patients. It is a food as medicine program, so we use the food as medicine, and we're going to try to share with you foods that we would like you to include moving forward, or even show you how to use them. We also partnered with Sodexo. Sodexo is one of the largest organizations in the country with food and nutrition and those products as well. We get some food products from them as well. We also get Angela from Sodexo. Biggest asset. We have Fresh Fruits and Farm, where we get fresh produce from there. We also have a look at Angela's thing, McCormick. So she got it right there. McCormick, most of us know McCormick for being one of the giants in providing spices. And I think, is it Mrs. Dash that they make, or is it another one that they make that is sodium free? So if we can get patients those sodium-free spices, that's great. So they donate a whole array of spices that we can share with our patients. We have the YMCA. So the YMCA, as we know, is a gym that has thousands of locations across the country. So we have a particular location that we've partnered with. So patients who would like to really get active and within a gym setting, they can have access to use the gym there. One of my closest partners is CAN, the Community Assistance Network, where I house my food pantry from my location here at Franklin Square. And that partnership is intermingle with the Maryland Food Bag as well, but they already have a food pantry. So we share their space. So we have somewhere that the patients can meet us, get their counseling, and get the food, because it's going to be stored as appropriately, considering all food safety measures, and Ken does a good job of taking care of that. Which one did I miss?
And Hungry Harvest, we can't forget them.
Hungry Harvest, oh my goodness, yes, Hungry Harvest. So Hungry Harvest works with local farmers so that we can get fresh produce to our patients. So one of the reasons, and just one of the reasons why a lot of our patients, or even people on the whole, do not buy regular produce, whether it's canned, fresh, or frozen. But let me focus on the fresh. You focus on the fresh part. It's because one, it may go bad before they can do something with it. So then they see it as a waste, and now they're not going to waste that money. Two, the cost itself. Sometimes, unfortunately, because of social media, people have been brainwashed to believe that foods need to be organic for it to be good for you. So now they're looking at the organic prices in the grocery and thinking, well, the conventional ones are not as healthy, and some of them may not choose those options. So this is an affordable way that we can, again, use food as medicine to provide our patients with a variety of options that are seasonal to Maryland and available in our local area. Where else? Did I get them all?
I think that's most of them.
Franciscan Center. I just see it over there. Yes, the Franciscan Center. Oh, they are a great nonprofit organization as well. They do so many things. I can't name them all. I won't do them justice. But they have a chef training program where they train chefs to be excellent. They cook food from scratch with the produce, again, that's available through Hungry Harvest, and teach people how to do that. They do an array of things, and we partner with them so that patients can have access to the social services that they provide that our patients need.
That's great. I love to hear that. All these partners helping out with this program. That's awesome.
We don't do it alone.
No.
It is a multi-hands-on approach.
Yes, yeah. I love that. And then Tonya, can you tell us about the Food RX program at MedStar Franklin Square Medical Center?
Yes, so as the latest addition to the FoodRx family, the Franklin Square location is the most recent one, so the third. It started with Angela at Good Sam. Second was Nancy at the Harbor Hospital, and now here at Franklin Square. The slight difference with their locations at Franklin Square is that I have an off-site pantry. So I mentioned a little while ago, I work with CAN more closely, the Community Assistance Network, and they already have a beautiful pantry already laid out. It looks like a huge grocery store, and it's very attractive. You walk in there and there's pretty food everywhere, and you just can't help just to feel welcomed in there. It's really clean and nice. So I have a little section where I have a curated area where I'm promoting much more of what we're preaching about, including more of those produce items and whatnot, and also those lean meats. So we share that space with them. I also have an office over there that I do the nutrition counseling. And then I work out of the clinics from Franklin Square Hospital itself. So I work with two separate clinics, one of which is the primary care center, and then the other is a family health center. Both clinics have just amazing doctors, amazing support people that not only support the program, but do appreciate and recognize what a food as medicine intervention can do for patients. Because at the end of the day, we're all part of this medical clinical healthcare team, and everyone is not an expert in everything. So they do their thing, what they're really, really, really good at, and I do my thing, what I'm good at. So I'm the dietitian that addresses the dietetics part, the nutrition part, help the person manage their expectations, and with blood sugars and with food and the eating, all the questions, and dispel those myths and all of that stuff. So it's really all of us together that really make everything so successful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And this is a question for all of you, and I think a good way to kind of wrap up our discussion. Can we talk about how each of you motivate your patients, and how this Food RX program has benefited your patients? And if there's anything else you want to add to final thoughts or messages to take away from this. But how has this program helped the patients that you all see?
Yeah, I'll start. The beauty of it is watching a patient sort of have that aha moment, have that moment where they recognize that that's what they were doing that wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful to see, because it doesn't just show up in their personality when, you can see their pride in being able to actually take control of their health and do it well. But when we also get their clinical markers back, maybe they've lost 20 pounds. Maybe they were denied a surgery that they needed because their blood sugars were too high and the surgeon wouldn't perform the surgery. Maybe they had a wound that would not heal, that was preventing them from going back to work. maybe they had an A1C that was, 13 or 14 or 15%, when in actuality, regular blood sugars can be as low as, 4.5, 5.4. So when they get that good news, when the surgeon says you've lost enough weight, your blood sugar is well managed, your A1C has come down, yes, we can do your surgery now. That was the goal. When they walked into the clinic here at the Collaborative Care Program, that's managed by Dr. Malik Sheikh, that's directed by him, we can say that was the goal. From the day that we met you was for you to be able to have your surgery. And now here we are 3 months later, and we've now met that goal. So that person now knows how to manage their chronic disease. And the very reason they were sent here, referred to us, has been achieved. So that is a win, not just for us, but for the patient, most importantly. So, there are lots of things that we do, but the thing that we do the best is listen to the patient and what they want. What do you want? Why are you here? How can I help you? And usually if you start from there, the patient is all in. So that's been a really rewarding part of this program, is helping people see that they had it all the time. They just didn't know it. You can't do what you don't know.
Yeah, quick add there. So how I do it is celebrate the wins. The small wins, the medium wins, the long wins. We didn't get here in 24 hours. We're not going to undo it all in 24 hours or 24 days. So we got to celebrate the small steps, making progress until we get there. So that goes a long way.
And I mean, perfect segue, because I see my primary role here as being someone that they can trust to listen to them, to make them feel like they matter, and to help them find the self-worth to want to keep coming back and keep doing this. I think most of the people that come here just come here because they like having someone to come in who listens to them half the time. And by the way, somewhere during that, they start to trust me enough to tell me more about their life and more about their diet and more about their medication behaviors. And it's especially important in an area where there is less trust. I mean, people tend to have less trust in healthcare providers. So I'm glad to be that person who they feel like they can really talk to and have their trust in.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's a perfect way to wrap up this broadcast, a perfect note to end on. Thank you all again for joining us and taking time out of your day to answer our questions. We really appreciate it. And thank you to our viewers for joining and asking your questions. For more information about the Food RX programs at MedStar Health, or to get a referral, please call one of the phone numbers that we will be listing in the comments below. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. Have a happy, healthy holiday season, and we'll see you next time.
Our pleasure. Happy holidays.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.